Hi, I'm Kelly and welcome to Kapowski Reads. We are in the middle of a storm, so even though it is during the day, I have to have the big light and have a ring light on because there is absolutely no sunlight and a lot of wind. So I have been reading this week my pre-orders. October for me is the month where I just happen to have the most number of pre-orders come out. I have received 4 pre-orders this month, which I think might be a record. I haven't done the maths. I've got no facts to back me up, but it just feels like that's the most. So this week I have read 3 of them and I'm going to be chatting about them with you today. There will be no spoilers because all of these books are new, but if you've read any of them or plan to read any of them, let me know. The one book that I have not read purely is due to the fact that I'm doing a buddy read of it starting on the 1st of November. And trust me when I say that it's taking all of my willpower not to crack into it because it's A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, the final book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I'm so excited about this book, and I got the Waterstones edition and I have this copy and it's so pretty. I really kind of hoped I was going to get the Apple one, but I mean, I'll take what I can get. But let's go on to the books that I've read. First up is The Forest Demands Its Due by Kosovo Jackson. This came out on the 3rd of October and I read it as an audiobook just because there were issues with me getting a physical copy, and I thought, oh, I can't be bothered with that, so I'll just get an audiobook. It was quite a long audiobook too. It was like 12 hours. And this book on paper sounds like my dream book. A YA fantasy horror about a black teenage boy called Douglas Jones. He is at a very prestigious private school where he discovers the sinister history surrounding this school and the area. One day a student is tragically killed, but the next day nobody remembers the student apart from Douglas and the son of the groundskeeper. While trying to find answers, why is nobody remembering this kid? Why do only we remember this kid? Douglas kind of ends up releasing a pretty vengeful creature from the woods. I didn't love this book, so I'm not going to dwell too long on it. It's not fair to the book for me to sort of go on about why I didn't like it in huge detail because, my yuck might be somebody else's yum. I thought I was going to love it because of the creepy woods. I love a creepy wood and I got a creepy wood. So if you want that, it's here. We've got the creepy wood. We've got a really interesting sort of god/demon element that was really exciting. But the reason I didn't enjoy this book as much as I had hoped was because pretty much the entire plot was provided really early on. I knew the who, what, where, when and why about 20% into the book. It was all revealed. And while there were extra little revelations as the book went on, I found myself sort of going, that huge reveal was so early and I'm kind of waiting for like a tiny little sprinkle of something. But I feel like there was so much plot and twists given really early on that when the later sort of reveals came, they paled by comparison, which just kind of felt unfair. And I think that had those reveals been later or spread out in the book, this easily would have gotten like 4.5 stars. For me, it was literally just the sort of pacing and the fact that I knew too much. I knew too much going in. I should have known very little and then had little reveals given to me. But that's just something that it didn't work for me. But I have heard great praise for this book. So if you want to read it, don't listen to me. If you want to read it, go read it. Do not let me put you off something just because it didn't work for me. So swiftly moving on to a book that I did enjoy. Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the second book in the Shepherd King duology. I'll get its partner. This is a duology and I first read One Dark Window. I got it as an arc, so I actually read it before it came out and I've been waiting over a year for book 2 and I've been impatient. So this is the sequel and our main characters Elspeth and Raven have gathered most of the magical providence cards. Basically, they need these cards to unite the deck of cards, and it'll help cure the town of a mist that is sort of plaguing them. And that mist kind of drives people to madness if they're not protected. But also there are curses that impact certain people, and it's just a whole lot of stuff going on, and they need to fix it, and they're working really hard to do so. It feels like other people are working hard to not, because it works for their advantage to have the people of the town a little bit scared. Elspeth and Raven head off on a quest. They have to go into the mist-cloaked forest to try and find the final card, and they have to trust the nightmare, which is the voice, shall we say, that lives within Elspeth's mind. The atmosphere of this book was just so dark. It was almost like a modern day sort of gothic fairy tale. The book was told in dual narrative. We have got Elspeth's point of view. She is mainly in this dark forest, and it's so creepy, and the woods are almost like alive, and there are things and beings in that wood, and it's just sort of so filled with like danger and the unknown, and I ate that up. The other narrative comes from Elm, Prince Renelm. He is, a lot of people are named after trees. If you've not read the first book, no spoilers for the first book, but a lot of people named after trees. He is in this grand castle. The castle is just so vividly described as just dark, cold, both like physically cold, but also like there's no warmth, there's no heart in this castle. It's empty of like a soul. It's ruled over by a horrible tyrant of a king, Prince Elm's father, and he's really deeply unpleasant and continues to be deeply unpleasant throughout. I loved the characters in this book. I loved the characters in the first book as well, but I feel like in this book I got to know a lot of the previously side characters a lot more. So I got to know Prince Elm, and I really got to like him. At first I thought he was just a sort of surly rich guy, but he is, and in addition to that he's also, you know, gone through some pain, and he showed a lot of vulnerability, and there was a reason for his surliness. So I really like sort of seeing him become a better fleshed out character, somebody that I really started to care about. We also got to know Elspeth's cousin Ione, or Ione. That's the thing when you read fantasy books and you're not sure about how names are pronounced, you just make them up. You just say them in your own head and they're probably wrong. So I thought it was Ione, but now I think of it, it might be Ione, but I'm thinking of Iona. I don't know. Elspeth's cousin. And at first we had met her and she was just this beautiful woman that everybody liked and everyone adored. And she still was that beautiful woman that, you know, was so popular, but she actually got to sort of show her personality. She was so much more than just a beautiful facade. She was strong-willed, she was brave, she was determined, she wasn't afraid to sort of risk her own life to save those who she cared about and to do what was right. So I absolutely just grew to love her. And yeah, I just found myself so attached to all of the characters, apart from the deeply unpleasant king and his loser son, not Elm. He has another son. I hated them. Hated everyone who's on their side, but other than that, we were meant to. I really just so loved the characters. I also got to know more about the Nightmare, who was the voice inside of Elspeth's head, and he was sassy. He was sarcastic, he was very like, again, surly, but we got to know more about him and I really enjoyed having that. There were some flashbacks that really helped to sort of set the tone and the stakes. This book picked up immediately following book one, so there was none of that previously on the Shepherd King series. None of that. It was straight just, here is the next chapter, and I love that. My pet peeve with series is when they spend the first section of the next book giving me a recap of what I've just read. And I know that that's for, you know, books that maybe take a while to come out, but if I don't remember, I'll read it. Or I'll read a summary of the previous book. Don't waste your precious pages on recapping me. I can do my homework. Don't worry. So that's definitely a point in its favour. We were just plopped right back into the action. It was so exciting. It was so fast paced. And because I had seen that this was a duology, I knew the series would be ending here, which gave me the fear. Gave me the fear of when a series is coming to an end, you kind of know there's that element of kill all your darlings. And I was so attached to these characters. I was like, no, Rachel Gillig, no, leave everyone alone. You can't harm them. I was getting very, very emotionally invested. This is an absolutely fantastic duology. If you enjoy a quest, if you enjoy a fantasy world, lovable character, sort of witty banter, a really interesting magic system and some whimsy, then I mean, give the series a go. I highly recommend it. It is possibly my second favourite duology, because nothing is beating this Poison Heart for me, but it's definitely, I think it's definitely my second. Highly recommend. And this book came out on the 17th of October. I forgot to say that. The final book that I read this week, I wonder if BookTube is maybe going to be saturated with this book because it's quite popular, was The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I can actually show the title of it. It's probably covered in my fingerprints because this dust jacket just makes me feel like I've got greasy hands. And I don't, because I've washed my hands. But I still feel I'm getting like greasy little paw prints. This book came out on the 24th of October. It's rather short, so it's a very quick read. I read this in the physical book, but I also had the audiobook because I'm an idiot and I pre-ordered both and then forgot. So I had both of them. I listened to a couple of chapters on the audiobook earlier today, but mainly I read it in the physical format. Michelle Williams does the audiobook and you've probably seen a few clips of her reading it. She is fantastic. I have reenacted some of the quotes to my partner, who I bet was absolutely delighted by it. So I can recommend either, you know, actual physical book or audiobook. Very good. It is Michelle Williams from Dawson's Creek, not Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child. I was very confused initially because I was expecting Destiny's Child Michelle Williams. The Dawson's Creek Michelle Williams is also lovely. I just, in my mind, was expecting another Michelle Williams, so I was very confused at first. I feel like this is one of the most anticipated memoirs of the year. Again, I've done no research into this statement. I just think it might be. I could be wrong, but it's one of the most anticipated memoirs for me this year. In addition to Fern Brady's memoir, those were the two ones that I was the most excited for. This is Britney Spears' memoir. Finally, she is getting to get her voice out. I was a little nervous at first going into this book because there had been a lot of articles about this book, which is why I think it's been highly anticipated. A lot of articles were sort of saying things that were in the book and I was like, oh, is everything going to be spoiled? But also, is it going to just be a gossipy, like, tell-all story? I didn't really want to read it if it was going to just be, you know, gossiping about other celebrities and things, because that's what I was seeing it marketed as, and it wasn't. It definitely was not a gossipy book that was, you know, filled with things that I'd already known about. It wasn't. It was a very vulnerable memoir, very open, and there were a lot of things in the book that I had not known about Britney before. I didn't know a lot of things about her early childhood. I didn't know about her relationship with her family prior to the conservatorship, and I didn't know too much about her relationship with her family during the conservatorship. Am I saying that word right? Because I've seen that word so many times that it no longer seems like a word to me. There were some sort of celebrity anecdotes, some little stories about meeting people like Mariah Carey, like Madonna. There were some fun little stories, and I feel like they added little bits of lightness and a little bits of, you know, happy memories to what must have been a really difficult book to write. My wee heart broke during this book. I found myself getting so just enraged and just angry and sad in the way that this book was just showing how she'd basically been failed by so many people who it's their job to love and protect her. She was just failed and exploited, really. It was just so sad to just read that from such a young age. She had just worked so hard to get that sort of approval and attention that she so desired from her parents. And the easiest way to do that was to perform. And it was just so, with the benefit of hindsight of knowing what happened to her very publicly, you could read these early bits and be like, oh, you poor little kid. It was just so sad. This was just a memoir about a woman who just wanted to be loved and find her joy, but instead she was gaslit and pushed to the point of just breaking. If you want a sort of celebrity gossip book, this isn't it. You're not going to get celebrity gossip from this. If you want celebrity gossip, I would recommend this. This is your celebrity gossip. Reach for the Stars by Michael Cragg. This is a collection of extracts from celebrity interviews. Britney's not in this. This is based on UK pop music. But this is your sort of celebrity wee fishwife book. Britney's memoir is not. But if you want a very raw and vulnerable memoir, then maybe this is it. The overwhelming theme I got from this book was not anger, not rage. It was very much just a feeling of acceptance and healing. And just throughout the book you could just see how much she kind of still tried to see the best in people, and I think that was very beautiful of her, because I'm sitting here reading it crying and getting angry. I'm not even involved, so I can't imagine how hard it was to write this book. But I totally understand why she didn't read the audiobook, because then she would have had to have relived everything that she'd relived to write the book. So I totally get that. And the audiobook, again, was fantastic. So I feel very proud of myself for reading pre-orders in the month in which they have arrived. I do try to read them in a timely manner, but I also fail a lot because there's just so many books and I forget. I'd love to know what the last book you pre-ordered was. Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't pre-ordered anything then recently, but you want to let me know that you were here, please pop a tree emoji in the comments in honor of Two Twisted Crowns. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna go and see if our bins have been blown away. Bye!